I'm Makini Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Stephanie Harrison is the creator of the New Happy philosophy. Her work has been featured in publications such as CNBC, Fast Company, Forbes, and Harvard Business Review. She's the founder of The New Happy, a company helping individuals, companies, and communities apply this philosophy in their lives. The New Happy's art, newsletter, podcast, and programs reach millions of people around the world every month. She has a master's degree in positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, and previously she was the director of learning at Thrive Global. She's an author and a thought leader. So please welcome to the show, Stephanie Harrison.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much for sharing or agreeing to share your story and the tools that are in your new book. I am more than excited to jump in because I've been following your Instagram page, like I mentioned before we started recording, since 2021. So
so wild. Thank you.
The page has been helpful for me on my healing journey, and I cannot wait to dig into the tools that you're sharing in your new book, and how our community can support and follow your page and your book and your journey even more.
Oh, thank you. That's so lovely of you.
So before we get into where things are now, I love to get a little bit into your backstory and into who or what you wanted to be as a little girl before society came in and either tainted your views or limited your views. So I would love to know if we could start there.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like probably my first desire in life was probably to be some sort of explorer or something like that. I think I was really influenced by Carmen Sandiego when I was a kid. I always loved that idea of going on great adventures and traveling the world and doing all that kind of stuff. Then it quickly morphed into being a writer, actually, or doing something related to books and creativity. Yeah, I have memories of being in first or second grade and writing little books and little scripts and things like that. So what I guess I feel very privileged in reflecting on that I am now, many years later getting to do that, which never really seemed like a possibility. I went off in a very different direction for a long time.
I love hearing the connection when someone talks about, when their imaginations are free to run wild as kids, who and what they wanted to be and how that connects to who they are today. And if they were able to hold on to those dreams, or if they, pivoted and took a different route and came back.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that you've come back to the truth of who you always wanted to be.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? And I feel like that spirit of like being an explorer was really more about, in many ways, about diving into new knowledge and ideas. I would say that's probably the thing that energizes me the most is
Mhm.
exploring different concepts and um, different fields. And so in many ways, I feel like I get to, while I don't travel the world and go on grand adventures in that way, I get to explore, I get to be an explorer, in my mind, at least.
Yeah, well, you know what? I feel like a lot of the definitions to words that we have, there can be different perspectives to it. There's so many, I guess, titles or labels that can have multidimensional meaning. So being an explorer doesn't necessarily have to mean, traveling the world or doing any of those things. I think it's beautiful that you're exploring our mental health, you're exploring wellness, you're exploring all these different things.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so nice
You're
to make these
welcome.
connections with you. It's so cool. I really haven't thought about it in such a long time. So it's really cool to reflect on that with you.
Part of why I really enjoy doing this podcast, aside from my therapist telling me it's very healing for me, is being able to connect with like-minded people, being able to
Yeah.
have these deep reflective questions that help us to dig deeper into, who we are, how we view ourselves, how we view the world, how we can contribute. So I'm always grateful when guests come on because that allows me to grow and to expand and to explore just as much as it allows the
Mm,
listeners. So thank you.
that's lovely. Oh, so touching.
So I would love if you could share with the listeners, how you got to where you are today. Like, give us the Coles Notes version, or I guess in the States, it's what is it called again?
Oh, Cliff Notes.
There we go, the Cliff Notes version of how you got to where you are today.
Well, it definitely wasn't a straightforward path. I will say that. I let's see. When I went to college, I moved from Canada to New York City to go to NYU, and I um, I started to come to believe that there was all of these things that I needed to do in order to be happy. And so I did
Mhm.
them. I tried to be very as successful as I could. I tried to cultivate my personality and my get all the things and do all these, go through like kind of life's checklist of all of the things that you have to do in order to be deemed good enough or worthy of
Mhm.
happiness. And unfortunately, all it did was make me very, very unhappy, very miserable. And there was one night where I was, lying on my bedroom floor, crying, feeling completely alone, like I was never going to figure out how to live a good life or find my way out of just the challenge I was in. And I was struggling with my physical health and my mental health and just feeling completely overwhelmed. And in that moment, I had this tiny little moment of curiosity where I realized, like, maybe it's not my fault. Maybe I'm not doing everything. It's not that I'm not doing enough to be happy.
Mhm.
It's that I'm doing the wrong thing. And it was like this tiny little speck of light. And I eventually got up off the floor and was like, okay, I'm going to go operate under that assumption now.
Mhm.
And I started trying to follow that and see where it took me. And it started with making changes in my own personal life. I left New York. I moved to California. I eventually got a new job in a field that was probably a better fit for me and certainly offered better work-life balance and support. I made new friends. I started to spend more time with myself and figuring out who I was and what I needed and what I wanted. And that's when I started also studying happiness and trying to figure out, what we knew about it, I guess, as a collective. Like, what do we know about well-being, true well-being, not the kind of
Mhm.
false coin that I had been pursuing. And then that's what led me to get a master's degree in positive psychology, which is the scientific study of happiness. And while I was doing that, I ended up writing this thesis arguing that, we had gotten happiness all wrong. And that was the beginning of my work with my company, The New Happy. So I was doing that as I was working full time, and I came back, went back to work, wasn't really sure what to do, didn't really know how I was going to share a philosophy with the world. It felt very vague
Mm-hmm.
and very like people wouldn't be interested in it. And so eventually, after a little while, I started a newsletter um, called The New Happy and started writing about it. And then eventually decided to leave my full time job and go and try and share this message with people. And I've been working on that full time for about 4 years now.
Wow. There's so much that you said there that I want to unpack. um, one, fellow Canadian.
Oh my
um,
gosh.
what part of Canada are you from?
I'm from just outside of Toronto.
Oh, same. I'm east of
Oh,
Toronto.
oh my gosh. Amazing.
Love it, love it. Okay. But I love how okay, so there's a common theme that I've found doing this show for the last 6 years. And every woman that has come on and shared their adversities and their struggles and how they are presently making an impact in the world, the alignment that I found is that our pain births our purpose.
Mhm.
Whatever it was that was hurting us or what we were struggling with, it's like we want to help others heal from that same
Mhm.
thing. So,
Mhm.
when you were talking and sharing that you were struggling with your physical health and your mental health, and you decided to study positive psychology, and now, your impact through the new happy, like, I love, 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 love how your journey has transitioned, how you've transmuted your pain into purpose.
Oh, thank you. It's so interesting, isn't it? Like I was just having a conversation with some people about this and reflecting on something very similar, like the the suffering that we go through, like we would never choose to go through it obviously, but one of the ways that makes it copable is I don't even think that's a word, but like manageable, I guess, and something you can eventually transcend is trying to find some utility in it or to turn it into something, and I would definitely say that's the truth for me. My own experiences of unhappiness feel very far away in some ways now, because of all of the changes that I've made and how different I feel, but I can still recall exactly what it felt like. I can still think back and remember how desperate and sad and lonely I felt. And I think that hopefully that gives me a greater level of empathy for people who might find themselves in the same shoes and like a recognition that they're not alone in it.
Absolutely. There was actually this week's episode that just came out. The guest was talking about her healing journey from grief, but how
Mhm.
changing her environment and the things around her helped her to heal. And
Mm.
I- when you were speaking about your journey and you also changed your environment and all those things, I'm wondering how you feel that has helped you, because I know for myself personally, when I was at the lowest moment of my life a few years ago, I changed my home, I changed my car, I changed my furniture, and all of that helped me to not be triggered by the memories of all of those things around me. I'm just
Yeah.
curious, how has that helped you?
I definitely believe it has a powerful, powerful ability to make a difference. I think it's almost like it gives you the permission to step into a more authentic version of yourself. I find that it's so easy to become almost calcified in a previous version of who you are. And when
Mhm.
you're surrounded by an environment that reflects that, it becomes really easy to slip back into that or to sort of let go of your more conscious, aware self and the person that you're striving to become. And I know for me, like when I got to San Francisco, it was like I had this freedom to decide how to live in a way that I had, and it gave me the space to decide, like, okay, I'm somebody who now is really passionate about exercise and movement and getting enough sleep and taking care of my health and, doing these things that were not really a part of my life in the same way when I lived in New York. And I think that it's obviously a luxury to be able to move or to it's not always possible, but I think that even making changes, like I think that's probably why we probably feel better when we like tidy up our rooms or our houses, like having that
Mhm.
space to feel like you can be who you are and the items and experiences around you that support it. I truly believe it's very powerful.
Mhm. I remember, years ago, it was probably at least maybe 15 years ago or so, I remember
Mm-hmm.
reading a study that explained that your environment and the tidiness of your environment, the clutter and or cleanliness is a reflection of what's going on in your head. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was healing, I looked around and I saw, things left unchecked that I normally wouldn't, which kind of helped me realize, okay, I'm not as okay as I thought.
Yeah.
Or if I look at when
Yeah.
my kids' rooms are looking like a tornado passed through it, I'm like, okay, what's really going on here? Like, what emotions are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling? What's really going on? Um, so I think sometimes we overlook how our environment, not only in how it feels, but how it looks, affects our mental
Yeah.
health.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like I've been reflecting a lot. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I've been reflecting a lot lately on how good we are at hiding from ourselves. Like
Mm,
how denial is so powerful, isn't it? And
yes.
it's got to be one of the most powerful forces in the world. And I when I think about my own experiences, I it took a lot of signals for me to wake up and go, okay, something is wrong.
Right.
And if I had noticed those sooner, if I had been more attuned to my own needs and emotions and my body and my environment, like you're talking about, I wouldn't have
Hmm.
needed such a dramatic wake up call to
Right.
invite me to course or force me in my case to course correct. Um,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting to me how we can go on being like, I'm fine, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, like, no, it's very obvious that everything
Yeah.
is not fine.
Absolutely. So interesting enough. Okay, so when I wrote my first book, I had not yet become a mindset coach.
Mm,
And at the time, I was talking about, like, there was a chapter in the book where I was talking about my, I guess, how I choose to show up, because
mm,
my previous line of work and the environments that I was in, I was always well dressed and shoes and hair and everything done to the nines. And it was important to me about how I showed up and how I was viewed in how I show up. It's like my former pastor used to talk about, you dress for the environment that you're going into. And
mm,
then as I started to study the material and working with my mentor and understanding our paradigm and the fact that we actually have two images of ourselves. We have the inner image and the outer image. Our outer image is how we show up to the world, how we do our hair, how we walk, how we talk, the things that the outside world can see. But our inner image is how we view ourselves. And that is a stronger reflection of who we are, but most people don't focus on that. And if we were to actually look at how we view ourselves, because our results in life are also a reflection of our inner self-image, because that
mm,
affects the opportunities we go after. It affects our relationships and, the things that we feel that we deserve. So becoming aware of my inner self image shifted everything for me. Where now,
mm,
today, I am okay with having clients that pay me almost six figures and I can show up in a tracksuit and feel fine because on the
mm,
inside, I am confident in the value that I'm offering and what I am bringing, as
mm.
opposed to before trying to pretty it up to make it look
Yeah.
it's not.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I mean, what an interesting transformation, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So I would love to, I guess, have you explain the difference between old happy and new happy.
Old happy is my word for society's definition of happiness, and then the culture that we've created around it to support it, and the institutions and systems that enforce it. And Old
Mm.
Happy is informed by these three societal phenomenons of individualism, capitalism, and domination, which are, I believe, the core driving forces at the heart of Western culture. And they teach us to value certain things, to pursue other things, to see ourselves in a specific way, to your point, and to treat others in a very specific way as well. And what my research has found is that Old Happy does not make us happy, it makes us miserable. So we think
Mhm.
that we're pursuing happiness, but in fact we end up pursuing misery, which is what happened to me.
Mm. Wow. I feel
So that's what
like
we don't want.
yeah. Absolutely not. I feel like so okay, so I started following the New Happy's Instagram page in 2021, and I went through my major transformation in my own mindset shift and healing around just before the pandemic hit. So 2019, 2020. And
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the reason why the page resonated with me so much in my shift is because I had my own awareness that the old way of happiness was not
Yeah.
for me. It's not what I wanted. And I didn't, it was like, chasing accolades and society's idea of success and all these things. And I was like, this is not making me happy. I actually don't care about these things. And I
Mm,
started shifting my mindset to I am prioritizing peace, freedom, love, connection, all of those things over all the other things. And I've
mm,
stuck to that. And I can tell you, I have not had any like serious deaths, like bouts of depression that I used to get. I no longer have any symptoms of fibromyalgia, which, you know, prior to me understanding things, it was like chronic muscle pain. And they say that it comes
yeah.
with side effects of anxiety and depression, but it's really anxiety and depression causing your body to be in pain. So I haven't had to deal with any of that since my focus has shifted to, I guess, as you would call the new happy.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's so powerful, isn't it? Like, I think that the people, it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I think that the people who seem to connect with the new happy the most are, I would group them into like one of two groups. The first is people like you who are like, I've been through a transformation. I feel my priorities have shifted. I'm on a new path. I'm leaving something behind. Like I'm on the way. You know what I mean? Like the way that
Mm-hmm.
you describe it. And then there's probably a second group of people who are disillusioned with how things are, but they haven't quite gone that first step at least, and they're looking for help and support with their daily problems and the things that they're facing. And perhaps for them, the new happy can be like a first, an introduction to some of these ideas, to help get them started. And then for people like you, I like to think of it as like a daily reminder of what matters, and like helping, like a daily nudge almost to help keep you on track towards what really matters to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some questions that someone who isn't yet aware that they could ask themselves in order to achieve happiness?
I think one of the most important things to do, and a relatively easy entry point, is to make a list of all of the goals that you're pursuing right now. And you might not know, you might think, I'm not doing anything, I'm not pursuing any goals, but you are. You're always working towards goals. As human beings, we are goal directed. We set them, we pursue little projects all the time, whether it's, I keep my kitchen clean, or I'm trying to run a half marathon, or I want to be a good daughter. Those are all goals. So
Mm-hmm.
make a list of all of the goals that you think that you're pursuing right now. You'll probably come up with between, I think the average from studies is usually between like 15 to 25. So probably more than you think. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and write them down, and then take a step back, maybe like leave it for a day. Come back the next day when you're in a grounded, centered place and look at that list. And then I want you to put a star next to the ones that you feel like you chose for yourself, that were authentically, intrinsically motivated by something that you desired, that you wanted, you were curious about. And then look at the ones that don't have a star next to them and think about where they came from. Was it something that your parents made you think you needed to do? Was it something that our, capitalist society made you think you needed to do? Was it pressure because of a group of friends all doing something? Just gently start to interrogate it and then ask yourself, what would it look like if I removed some of these goals or I shifted them to become more aligned with who I am and what I want in my life and what matters most to me? And then see what small changes you might want to make. Sometimes this exercise has the power to really illuminate where you are out of alignment and offers a really quick shift back.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was trying to stay quiet because I'm like, it's funny that that's one of the very first exercises I do with my clients
Oh my
because
gosh.
a lot of the women that come to me are miserable in their lives. They're unhappy with their jobs. They're, unhappy in their relationships and all these different things because they went into a career that their parents wanted them to get into or they thought they should get into or their partner suggested or society. And it's not really what they want. So the first question is like, what do you really want outside of the influences of everyone else and the pressure that they've put on you? What, like, if there were no obstacles in the world, if I could wave a magic wand and give you what it is that you want out of life, like, what is it that you really want? And people start to dream and they start to think about the things that they haven't allowed themselves to because they're like, well, it's either too late for me or it's not possible or what would someone say or think or all those different things. And like you said, like once you get people asking themselves those deep questions, you'd be surprised at what actually comes out of that.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so cool.
I have a client who we did 12 sessions and she was working for a corporation for, I believe it was 14 years, barely had any increase in her position. And we started doing those exercises and asking herself those questions. And she realized that she was no longer happy, not only with this company, but in what she was doing. And by the time we finished her sessions, of the program, she had taken a course that was one step towards the direction of what she really wanted to do. And then it helped her build the confidence to actually apply for a position at a company that she never would have thought to apply for before. And part of her goal, she was like, she wanted to be able to make over six figures so she could, buy her new house with her husband and help take care of her father. And the new position, because of her training of the course she took, allowed her to do that. So by the time we finished, not only did she, walk away from her corporate job that she was in, she walked into a position that she always wanted to and that she loves. And she is so happy.
That's incredible. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm.
I would love if you could share, like, what are some practices that we can do on a daily basis for or to implement the new happy?
So I don't think I even covered this. So new happy, basically my recommendation for how to be happy is twofold. It's based on 10 years of research. And I argue that if you want to be happy, you need to be who you are and use who you are to help other people. And there are so many ways to do this. And one of the most powerful is really the simplest. And it might sound trite, but it is the single most studied intervention for boosting mood and for boosting well-being. And it's to strive to do little acts of kindness as you go about your day for other people. And when you do that, what you're doing is you are giving of yourself to others. You're being who you really are deep down, which is a loving, kind, generous, compassionate, supportive individual who has so much goodness within them. And you're expressing that out to others in order to help and support them, to give them something back for their well-being. And the simple act of, honestly, just sending a little note to somebody in your life who's having a hard time, or helping out a stranger who's struggling to carry their bags up the door, or holding the door for somebody. These tiny little acts that we just dismiss as unimportant have such an incredible opportunity to make a difference in your well-being. So simply looking for these little opportunities to help people is the very, very best way to start finding your new happy, because as you do that, you can start to discover all of these other opportunities to be yourself and give of yourself and figure out how you can craft a life around that.
Love it. Love it. I feel like I am the poster child for the new happy. Like everything that you talk about in your
You
book.
probably are.
I love it. like I remember probably just over 10 years ago, I was just going through divorce. My sister just passed away, and it was just before I had written my first book, and I was helping other people. Just like, so when my sister passed away and people started reaching out to me to let me know how she made them feel and the impact that she made in their life, how she supported them when their own families didn't, and things like that. So I started doing small things to emulate the qualities in her that I admired. But one of them was being helpful to other people. So if I was in a really bad mood, I would focus my energy on helping someone else, whether it be with their business, with their family, with their home. But in assisting someone else and helping them to do something, it raised my vibration. It made me feel better. So I wasn't focusing on problems going on, in my life. It was allowing me to help someone else, but that took me out of the negative headspace that I was in. So, I feel like everything within the book is like affirming for me.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And thank you for sharing that, because it's so validating to hear that it's something that you've employed as well, and how powerful it is. I mean, again, like, people want to dismiss it because, like, for whatever reason, people seem really resistant sometimes to the idea that the secret to happiness is helping other people to be happy. But I have never once, ever been in a bad mood, gone out and helped somebody, and not felt better after it in some small way.
Right.
Like, never.
I agree with you. My former mentor, God rest his soul, Bob Proctor, he used to say, like, the best way to get to your dreams is to help someone else achieve theirs. So, whether, even if you're, building a business and you're focused on building things within your business, depending on what your business is, instead of just focusing on yourself and how you can get ahead, how can you like help someone else with your skills to get to where they want to go? Because the energy from that, it's the word I'm looking for, it basically will open up the door and attract what you need to get to where you're trying to go, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so beautifully said.
I would actually love to know, like, what did you learn about emotions growing up, and how has it helped you or hurt you?
I didn't really receive any sort of education on emotions when I was younger. Everything that I have learned has been, in many ways, like something I've undertaken for myself. So I think that I understood that as a child. I think that I understood that my emotions were bad, like they were something to be ashamed of, or something that should be hidden away. And I was a very sensitive kid. I'm still a very sensitive adult, but I have a lot more tools in my toolbox now, obviously. And I often felt ashamed of how deeply I felt things and how much they could rock me. And I think that what I didn't realize was that my sensitivity was one of my greatest strengths, because it's only because I'm deeply attuned to my own thoughts and emotions that I'm able to, for example, make the artwork for the new Happy, which visually represents emotions and experiences. Like that's without that ability, I wouldn't be able to represent things in that way. And so I think that learning to meet all of my emotions with love and compassion, no matter what I'm feeling, has probably been the most important thing for my own like mental health and well-being in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Having just that recognition of it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel lonely, it's okay to feel angry, all of those things. And I'm probably a broken record about it, but I just think like the more you can just meet yourself with that love, the easier it becomes to let those emotions pass through you and be a part of your experience but not define you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. You mentioned the illustrations for the new Happy, and I think
Mm.
that's what first got me with the Instagram, because it was like the illustrations are simple, but they help you to process the information. And I know as people, we're visual. We think in pictures. So if I said dog, we don't picture the letters DOG, we actually picture a dog, whether it's our own dog
Mm.
or, a dog outside. So I love how you've connected the visuals to help people understand. Where did that come from?
Honestly, it's like a weird thing I have about how I see things in my head that has gotten stronger with time. It was something that was very underdeveloped when I started. I had no background in art or design or anything like that, but I wanted to communicate the new Happy's messages in a way that would be memorable, as you're saying, and also useful, from
Mhm.
an educational resource perspective. And so I started to create these representations of what I was seeing in my own head. And the more that I tuned into them and started to practice seeing them, the stronger they became. And so it's almost like it's turned into a visual dictionary or language of these ways of expressing ideas over the last 4 years of making them, constantly.
Hmm. And you mentioned, always being a sensitive person. I'm just curious if you know if you're an HSP. That's
Yes,
a
I
highly
think
sensitive.
I think I would definitely meet the standard for that.
I I always recommend guests when I hear that, they're also sensitive, I always recommend they take the test. I believe there's like 26 or 27 questions, and I think I'm like a 25 out of
Yeah.
all of them.
Kindred spirits.
Yes. So I can definitely hear, like, between you being sensitive and creative and your depth of empathy and all those things, that you definitely, to me, without you even taking the test, I'm like, yeah, you sound like an HSP. Like
Thank you.
there's I think there's like 5 particular gifts that HSPs have, and one is
Oh.
definitely empathy, 2 is creativity, 3 is like sensory intelligence,
Mm.
4 is like a depth of processing, and 5 is like depth of emotion.
Interesting. Oh my gosh, that's fascinating,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Um, I had another question. I was going to ask about, oh, my brain just went, meow. um,
Don't worry.
okay. So I guess while I'm thinking, what are some lies that we tell ourselves, and like how do they hold us back from self-fulfillment?
I think there are three core lies that Old Happy teaches us that we then perpetuate ourselves. The first is that you're not good enough. There's
Mhm,
something wrong with you, you're flawed, you're broken, you're bad, that sort of thing.
mhm,
The second is that you have to achieve these societally approved goals or milestones. And then the third is that you're separate from other people, you're on your own and you're disconnected from them. And I think
mhm,
that these three lies are at the heart of our unhappiness.
mm, mhm. I agree. I agree 1000%.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I guess, since I connected with your page through Instagram, I'll use this as an example, but like I remember for years when I started utilizing Instagram, people had all these negative thoughts about social media and how, I guess, the effects, and obviously there's good and bad to all things, but I didn't have that same viewpoint. Social media allowed me to connect with like-minded people. It allowed me to learn a lot of new helpful information. It allowed me to take online connections offline and build lasting relationships with people. I would be curious to know how, I guess, social media has impacted or affected you, especially building the new happy page?
Hmm. I think that, social media is like a tool, so I'm in agreement with you. It's a tool that can be used for positive outcomes or for negative outcomes. And like any tool, it's shaped a lot by the person who wields it. And there's stuff about it that you can't control, obviously, that you're at the mercy of technology companies and how they construct the experiences. But there is autonomy and self-determination that we have in the way that we use it. So when I started the new happy page, I didn't have an Instagram. I hated social media because I felt like it was the epitome of old happy values, and it was advancing those more. And I think over time my perspective has changed. I still believe that in many ways old happy is perpetuated through it, but again, it comes back to the users. And so when I started the new happy, I wanted to create a space that was totally different. I wanted it to be I wanted it to be grounded in values of community and compassion and acceptance and encouragement, and to create a space that was really different and felt very uplifting and empowering for people. So that's always been my goal. And to be honest, I'm not really a consumer of social media in other
Mm-hmm.
ways. Like I don't like spend time browsing on it. I use it as a tool for helping to get the message out and helping to support my community. But I'm not probably like somebody who's spending a lot of time there as a person. I limit my time to focus on how I can use it to advance, these new happy ideas and values.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah.
um, I have always been where I post and come off. I
Mm-hmm.
will say I post and ghost. That's what they
Love
say.
it.
But I agree with you. Social media is, you get out of it what you put into it. But at the same time, if you are someone who is sensitive, there's a lot on there that can negatively
Yeah.
affect. We are
Yeah.
utilizing it to build awareness, to help others have information and to heal. I think it's wonderful. So I can totally relate to everything you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
So before we go to the final segment of the show, I would love if you could tell the listeners, especially those listeners that are big on social media, where they can stay connected with you or where they can go to purchase the book and learn more from you and about you.
Oh, that's so lovely. You can find me at New Happy Co across all social media, and you can learn more about the book and everything else that I do at thenewhappy.com.
Awesome. Awesome. I will definitely have the links in the details section of the episode so they can just click and connect directly. They won't have
Thank
to search too
you.
far.
Thank you.
So for the final segment of the show, it's kind of like a rapid fire. You can share one word, one sentence, but I also don't like to put anyone into a box because it makes me claustrophobic. So if you feel the need to expand, you're more than welcome to do so.
Amazing.
Okay. Name a book that has changed or greatly impacted your life.
Hmm. Oh God, where do I even begin? I would say it's like so hard, isn't it? It's like choosing a favorite child. I'm like really not doing well in the rapid fire thing. I would say, um, from a personal growth perspective, I read the Four Agreements when I was in high school, and it really affected me. So I would say probably that.
Okay. Awesome. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world with anything on it, what would it say and why?
Help people. And I would say that because I believe that that is what is required to make our world a better and happier place.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. What advice would you give your future self?
Um, Keep going.
Okay. When was the last time you cried?
Oh, like yesterday, probably. Yeah, probably yesterday. Yes, yesterday, I can confirm.
Yeah. As a sensitive person, people need to understand we cry regularly.
Yeah, exactly.
Commercials, TV shows. Yeah.
Cute expressions
Okay.
from your dog.
Yeah, exactly. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Think about yourself less.
Okay. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Probably ignore that feeling inside of you.
Okay. What is your most repeated thought in a day?
Thank you.
And last but not least, what do you wish women would do more of?
I wish that women would trust themselves more. I know it's hard,
Love it.
but
I know.
yeah.
Honestly, thank you so much, Stephanie. This conversation has definitely blessed me. I
I feel the same.
so
Thank
uplifted.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I
much. Such a joy.
I know that we'll definitely stay connected, and if there's any other way that I can help get the message out there and share the new happy, I am more than happy to do so.
Oh, you're the best. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And to all the healers out there, until next time, subscribe on all platforms and don't forget to rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We just want to thank each and every one of you that continues to listen each week to help the show rank globally in the top 1.5% of most popular podcasts out there. And there's over 3 million. I want to challenge you to share this episode with 3 friends that need to hear all the tools and gems that Stephanie shared with us here today. You can screenshot this episode and tag us with your aha moments. You can tag Stephanie at The New Happy Co. You can tag myself at The Real Makini Smith. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.